okay, I'm driving back from Taliban. Been in there to do a few things. Seems we're going to Tolerant pretty well every day. One of us or both of us. Beth is over at our project in Burgos. She finds she is a forbidding presence when it comes to the workers there. They'll pay much more attention to their job and how much work they do when she is standing close. So she goes over there and she has a little place that she's able to sit in the shade, and usually some of the girls go with her. So that's it. And one of the things that always comes up whenever I speak to other expats, other foreigners, is that they are coming here trying to escape the over-regulation of whatever country they are in. If you talk to Alfred, it's the same. He was a self-professed farmer. That was his first love. His parents had him working in a bank, I think, which he didn't care too much for. He really wanted to be a farmer, and he knows a lot about farming. He talks about Germany, and he talks about how the over-regulation there is pretty well killing everything. And for all that the over-regulating brings in some kind of order, it actually takes away all self-responsibility, responsibility for one's own safety and well-being. And when I speak to Americans, they always talk about how the government is now in the process of creating a nanny state in which everybody is being babysat, if that's the right grammar. So this is the irony that I notice, is that when foreigners come to the Philippines, they often talk about, in America say, they'll talk about a time when you came into a gas station, somebody would come out and pump gas, clean your windshield, and in some cases would even check the oil and tyres for you, all as part of the payment for gas. It was the same in England, that when you came into, you never pumped your own gas. That was before they got the automated gas pump. So they talk about that. In America, they talk about, the Americans talk about how they used to have tailgate parties, that they would go out and they'd, I guess, maybe have a couple of beers or cokes. There was one particular era where if you went into a burger place, a pretty woman would come out on roller skates and put a tray on the door and serve you your burger or maybe pizza, I don't know. And they talk about that, and how there was little regulation, how there was a sense of freedom there, and that's been lost. And they wish that they could be that 50 or 60 or more years back in time to the 50s or the 60s, when, well, people talk about Woodstock, don't they, whenever that was. I think probably around the late 60s or 70s. Somebody will correct me on that, and I'll appreciate it. And they talk about that, and they talk about it in a real, with a real sense of romance and freedom. And back then, you didn't have the police breathing on you, and the police were able to make a judgment call. I know that even in the UK, which is obviously where I come from, they had it was the nickname for a cop was PC Plod, which was a kind of affectionate nickname, not just a derogatory name, but a cop on the beat then in England, a policeman would walk, and you would have one policeman walking alone, right? So you've got a cop who is respected enough that he can walk alone safely and not be eliminated, shall we say, with extreme prejudice. Oh, but that would be going into the American way of describing things. I always used to think that America was the best for certain sayings. What did we get from America? Collateral damage. That's when during any military project, if it was that some people were eliminated, that would be regarded as I said, collateral damage. The other one was that they didn't, when they went out and killed anybody, there was no blood. They were, what was it? They were terminated with extreme prejudice. And then I know that my brother used to be full of different ways of describing things. If he didn't like somebody and thought that he was weak or effeminate, he would call him a Nancy boy or a poofter. So there was a lot of that, but that all had this kind of aura of freedom, and there was no such thing then as being politically correct. You could say what you wanted, with the knowledge that some people might very well be offended, and there would be people out there who would be saying things which offended you. So there was, in many ways, there was more prejudice, but there was more tolerance. There was more of a realistic way of looking at things. So why am I saying that? Here I am in the Philippines, and I've run away from the overregulation with this romantic view of what the 50s or the 60s or 70s, and later it begins to degrade, 70s into 80s, but then 80s had some wonderful music which we regret losing. So I've got a lady walking with a little dog here, so I've got to be careful. And the little dog is in the middle of the road and running ahead of me. Heaven knows how he's going to outrun a Ford truck, but he is trying. Very funny. It's a silly little dog. So, I used to see all of this, and it would be written about on the expat sites. So, the expat sites, when I first came here, I looked on the expat sites to get some kind of a feel for the country. It seemed to me, probably not really true, but it seemed to me that it was all criticizing the Philippines. So I tried a couple of times to put a point of view, but it didn't work. Certainly the ones that I looked in on internet wise, they didn't seem to be interested in hearing anything positive. So I think I'm past that little dog now. He's been running ahead of me all that time. So they were there, and when they spoke about America and when they spoke about the UK, they did so with this romantic, wasn't it wonderful back then? You know that it was all so free and unregulated. And then they criticise the Philippines, and all of the criticisms of the Philippines were because it was like, unrecognised by them, it was like life, it is like life used to be in the UK, in America, in Australia, all of these places. You have all of those things which you're not allowed to do anymore in the UK or in, the UK. The UK has more surveillance cameras on their citizens than I think any other country in the world. How's that for freedom? All for their own good, of course. And all of what's happening right now is for our own good. We won't go into true or false on that, shall we? So they're criticizing the Philippines for being a lot like what they regret and miss in their own countries. So what an irony that what they're trying to do is to bring in the regulation in order to achieve the order that they enjoy by making the country that they have fled through like the one that they have fled from. Boy, human beings, they're full of irony, aren't they? So they ran away from their country because it was overregulated, because there were too many cops watching you. There was too much having to do the paperwork, your driver's license, your insurance, your, in the UK, your MOT certificate. All of these things, they have run away from that, and now they want this country to be like that. Because here, there are no cops out on the road. In the province, I never see a cop who is even interested in pulling me over to, even when I was driving our little red, the little red multicab that we used to have. Nobody was interested in pulling me over. If there was a road check, and this still is happening to this day, if there's a road check for any reason and they have a checkpoint, prior to the checkpoint, when you're driving along, you'll suddenly come across this rash of bikers who are sitting by the side of the road and they're not proceeding. And the reason always is that there's a checkpoint up ahead. Now here's the funny thing, and this is why I think that where this country is right now, or this province, let's say the island of Bohol, and not try to predict how other places are. But here, the police know that all of those bikers, motorcyclists who are stuck back there because they are illegal to some degree. Now, I spoke to one officer from Etafi who were on, because we partnered so much with the police now on doing humanitarian work. Yeah, there's a good thing, isn't it? That the police force here are calling us, asking us, can we do this because it's a humanitarian need? And they're asking us to go in and partner with them, and we're asking them. When we do a feeding, they'll provide officers and a patrol car truck to help take the food out to these different places and then give it out even. So things are now like these other complainers are complaining are not in their own country. So the fact that police are not hiding everywhere along the road trying to get you for a stoplight that's on, that's not on, and because you're driving without due care and attention, or you're doing this or you're doing that, or you haven't got that and you haven't got, and you're in America, they can pull you over. If the officer that is stood by the side of the road with nothing to do can pull you over if he thinks that the tints on the windows are too dark. The list of potential misdemeanors, traffic offences, are endless. So that's where those other countries have arrived. That's where they've arrived at. And yet when people come to this country, they miss the order that all of that regulation brings about. And I'm at the place that I should be right now to pick up my wife, and I'm going to finish off here. Thanks for being with me.